So I've been reading Nietzsche for some time now, but over the last 28 days, I tried to consciously live Nietzsche's philosophy. And that's what I want to share with you today. Just these three practices that I've taken from Nietzsche's writings. Now, there's a whole host of different teachings that I could have taken from Nietzsche's philosophy, but I decided to apply these three practices to my life because I believe they are the most existentially significant. And my hope is that as I go through these three practices, that you'll be able to understand the ideas behind them and see if you want to apply them to your own life. Now, before I begin, I want you to know that Nietzsche's philosophy is not something that you're meant to follow like some ideology or religious creed, as Nietzsche didn't want anyone to copy him, really. That's the complete opposite of what he was going for. You're meant to live your life in accordance with who you are. But in saying that, I think there are still very valuable teachings that we can take from Nietzsche's philosophy. But let me read this quote that illustrates this first point. Open quote. "No one can build you the bridge on which you, and only you, must cross the river of life. There may be countless trails and bridges and demigods who would gladly carry you across, but only at the price of pawning and forgoing yourself. There is one path in the world that none can walk but you. Where does it lead? Don't ask. Walk." Close quote. Now that I've got that caveat out of the way, I want to proceed with showing you these three practices that I've been doing. Now, these three practices come under one main idea, and that main idea is the Nietzschean affirmation. It's also known as the affirmation of life. This idea is summed up in the phrase, "say yes to life." So under this main idea of saying yes to life, I've pulled out three different ways of applying this idea practically to your life. There might be more ways of doing this and looking at this, but this is what I've decided to do to apply Nietzsche's life and ideas to my own life. So let me read these quotes by Nietzsche that explain this idea in precise detail, and then I'll explain the practical elements a little further. Open quote. "If we affirm one single moment, we thus affirm not only ourselves, but all existence. For nothing is self-sufficient, neither in us ourselves nor in things. And if our soul has trembled with happiness and sounded like a harp string just once, all eternity was needed to produce this one event. And in this single moment of affirmation, all eternity was called good, redeemed, justified, and affirmed." Close quote. In that quote, you can see the idea of the affirmation of life. And so what I did to apply this to my life and how you can apply this to your life is just take some time out of your day, wherever you are, and affirm that single moment and appreciate what is right in front of you or what just happened. And in that affirmation, we are implicitly affirming all existence that made that moment possible. And when you start thinking like this, you begin to see life as good, redeemed, justified, and affirmed. So that's the first practice. I just simply appreciate and affirm a single moment throughout my day. Now, let me read this next quote to give us some further insight into the idea of saying yes to life. Open quote. "What if some day or night a demon were to steal after you into your loneliest loneliness and say to you, 'This life, as you now live it and have lived it, you will have to live once more and innumerable times more, and there will be nothing new in it, but every pain and every joy and every thought and sigh and everything unutterably small or great in your life will have to return to you, all in the same succession and sequence, Even this spider in this moonlight between the trees, and even this moment, and I myself, the eternal hourglass of existence is turned upside down again and again, and you with it, speck of dust. Would you not throw yourself down and gnash your teeth and curse the demon who spoke thus? Or have you once experienced a tremendous moment when you would have answered him, "You are a god, and never have I heard anything more divine"? If this thought gained possession of you, it would change you as you are, or perhaps crush you. The question in each and everything: do you desire this once more and innumerable times more, would lie upon your actions as the greatest weight? Or how well disposed would you have to become to yourself and to life to crave nothing more fervently than this ultimate confirmation and seal? Close quote. So out of this quote, we can find the next two practices that I've pulled out of Nietzsche's philosophy. And the second practice comes from this idea of having the greatest weight held upon your actions. So before I do something, I ask myself, would I desire this once more and innumerable times more? This is very helpful for when you are making conscious decisions about your life. For example, when I was younger, I worked as an accountant in the city, and although it was a good job in society's eyes, I personally didn't feel like it suited my particular constitution as a person. So I asked myself, do I really want to do this for the rest of my life? And even more so, with this idea from Nietzsche, would I live this life over and over again? Would I be able to embrace this type of life forever? And the answer was no. I left accounting and I never regretted it. So that's one way to apply this idea, by holding the greatest weight upon your actions and asking yourself, would I want to live this way for all eternity? If not, then I can deliberately choose something else that suits me better. So that's one way of looking at this idea from a practical standpoint. Now, let me move on to the third practice, which is yet again another way of looking at and applying this idea of saying yes to life. And that's where at the very end of this quote, Nietzsche says, or how well disposed would you have to become to yourself and to life to crave nothing more fervently than this ultimate confirmation and seal? So through this lens, we are dealing with aspects of ourselves and life that we can't change, and that are just a part of reality and our existence. And therefore, what we are doing is adjusting ourselves in alignment with an acceptance and even embracing of life. This is a kind of tuning in of yourself in accordance with reality. This is probably the hardest practice out of these three to master. And I can't say that I've mastered it in the 28 days. It's something that really takes some time to adjust yourself to reality. But let me outline it for you a little bit more, because it is the harder of the three practices. So Walter Kaufmann wrote that Nietzsche celebrates the Greeks who, facing up to the terrors of nature and history, did not seek refuge in a Buddhistic negation of the will as Schopenhauer did, but instead created tragedies in which life is affirmed as beautiful in spite of everything. Schopenhauer's negation of the will was a saying no to life and to the world, which he judged to be a scene of pain and evil. Directly against Schopenhauer's place as the ultimate naysayer to life, Nietzsche positioned himself as the ultimate yes-sayer. And in this quote by Nietzsche in Ecce Homo, he writes, open quote, "My formula for greatness in a human being is amor fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity, Not merely bear what is necessary, still less conceal it. All idealism is mendacity in the face of what is necessary, but love it. Close quote. This quote refers to a person who is capable of uncompromising acceptance of reality. So Nietzsche's philosophy in this regard is not some high-minded, unrealistic idea. Quite to the contrary, it brings us back to reality to contend with it. So we shouldn't give shape to our instincts in such a way that we deny life and that takes us further away from reality. We should instead allow our instincts to express themselves in such a way that embrace life and come to a full acceptance of reality. So this has been my interpretation and practical application of these teachings to my life over the last 28 days. So if you decide to, let me know how you go with applying these existential ideas to your own life. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.